What's going on, everybody? It is Friday, March 17th. We're through the first few days of free agency, so we're here to recap some of the bigger moves and what they mean for the fantasy season in 2023. As usual, I'm joined by my brother Brian and our father Jeff. How you guys doing?
Good. TGIF.
Happy St. Patty's Day.
Oh,
Oh,
it
yeah.
is. Hopefully you're wearing green or drinking green beer or whatever you do on St. Patrick's Day. Free agency, pretty not the most exciting free agent uh crop of people. I think we kind of knew that going in. So there's been some moves, but nothing crazy, no crazy trades really either. We're gonna kind of go through position by position, starting with the quarterbacks and just kind of give our overall thoughts. I know we talked about Derek Carr last week, so we don't really have to spend too much time on him. Jimmy Garoppolo, though, to the Las Vegas Raiders, we kind of guessed that one and speculated on that one. Dad, you want to just give your overall thoughts on what that means for Garoppolo or Devontae Adams?
Yeah. So, Jimmy G supposedly has a history with Josh McDaniels when they were at New England. So I guess that's the fit. That's what all the smart people are saying. I mean, is Jimmy G, he's got a really good record, especially with the 49ers and stuff. So, compared to Derek Carr was, for lack of a better word, he was under 500. So, but he just seemed like he was the glue of the Raiders. And, is it really a true upgrade? Yeah, I guess time will tell. We'll have to see. They traded Darren Waller. So,
Yeah,
I don't
we'll
know.
get to that in the tight end section.
That affects quarterback. Jimmy G still is never going to be a great fantasy option. He'll be an okay fantasy option.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking redraft, if you got to play him 1 week, then, because somebody's sitting on the bench, if he's your main guy, then you're probably near the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So does Brian, does it change anything? One quarterbacks, I assume it probably doesn't change anything, or super flex. Does it kind of change how you perceived Jimmy G on the 49ers, or you kind of knock him down a little bit, or what do you think?
I'd say it actually, like in two QB leagues, like I think it's better for him because now we know he's going to be starting basically. So he's got a starting job, and it's not going to be like the quarterback carousel that it was in San Francisco, seemingly the last 2 years. Like he was always in jeopardy to lose his job to Lance or Purdy. Obviously injuries and other things factor into that, but I just felt like they were ready to move on from him, and they finally did. And now he's going somewhere where I'm sure he'll play for the better part of this year and maybe even further. Who knows? But he's serviceable. Yeah. I don't think it really affects Devontae Adams. I don't know.
We'll see if the Raiders draft somebody. That'll be
quarterback wise. Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting thing to see. What they think. How long term is Jimmy G? By what they're going to draft. If they're going to draft Anthony Richardson, then they're going to develop him. So he'll be in the same position he was in San Francisco, So
yeah,
we'll see.
Also, McDaniels and that whole group, they need to win. They don't really have the luxury of, we're going to take another year of rebuilding. They're kind of already on the hot seat, So, but yeah, I think you're right there, Brian, saying at least there's no question he's going to be the starter, and so I think that's a fair analysis there, and just his best year. I just looked it up. He had just under 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. That's not bad. Yeah, that's not.
Those are decent numbers.
Yeah, they'll put you in a comfortable second, super flex second QB range. So, but yeah, I think I agree. It doesn't change much for me for Devontae Adams. I think he can kind of fit any quarterback. So I don't have any worries there.
I mean, we had that same conversation at the beginning of, or during this last off season, where it's like, oh, Devontae Adams, is he going to be any good with Derek Carr? It's like, well, yeah, he was good. So
yeah,
was it a huge downgrade or for him or whatever? I don't know. Yeah, he'll win. He'll get the ball and he'll make things happen with it. So
yeah. Other than that, there wasn't too much. There's a lot of older veteran guys being signed, probably to be backups. I mean, there's a couple that maybe you can see. You got Taylor Heineke to Atlanta, Andy Dalton to Carolina, and Brissett to Washington. Or maybe are those three? Can you see any of those guys potentially starting the season as the starter, Brian? Again, Heineke to Atlanta, Dalton to Carolina, Brissett to Washington. Any of those?
I mean,
three?
I think they're all just basically veterans going to play backup for either rookies that are already there for Sam Howell with Washington and Ritter on Atlanta, and then Carolina, obviously, like they've got Corral, who they just got last year, but then also they've traded up to the first, and we all assume they're going to take a quarterback. So I think it's just veteran depth / someone to teach these guys, depending on, like I don't really see anyone being overly, like they might start some games, but not overly interesting.
Yeah. Out of those. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and end of the bench type guys, like in like super flex leagues, I would say.
Yeah. Out of those three guys, do you think anyone? Oh, he just left. I'm sure he'll be back. Yeah, I think Heineke probably has the best chance there. Just because I don't know if the Falcons are all in on Ritter. He was a third round pick. I don't think he necessarily showed too much, but he was a young guy. So, but I also don't think that coaching staff has the luxury of again, we have another year under our belt. Like they kind of need to win as well. And so maybe Heineke gives them that the best opportunity to do that.
Where are the Falcons picking? Do you know off the top of your head in the draft?
They are. I'll pull it up right now.
I was just kind of wondering, like I know they're not in like the top 10. I don't think. I
think they might be.
I was going to say it'd be kind of funny.
Are they number 8?
Yeah, I'm checking right now.
I'm just wondering if they're going to be any kind of position to take a quarterback, or I don't know what your guys' thoughts are outside. I haven't listened to that other your guys' quarterback analysis past the first one, so obviously it doesn't seem likely. They are 8th.
Yeah,
it would have kind of surprised me if they were much higher than that, but I just don't really remember them really being in the conversation too much. But
I guess if one of the top 4 guys are still there, there's a chance. But I mean, Carolina are going to take one. Houston, Colts are in the market. I mean, the Raiders are in the market. I mean, even Seattle and Detroit could take a guy if they really like one there. So it's almost every team besides maybe the Cardinals, and maybe the Cardinals trade out. So yeah, it's definitely an option. But yeah, other than that, and going back to the free agents, anything else? I mean, we got Stidham to Denver.
I think
Mike White to Miami.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in Tampa Bay now. We're gonna have the battle of the super quarterbacks there, Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask.
Yeah,
it's gonna be real good watching there.
Yeah, I mean they should be they should have an open competition there. Actually, there is a couple more guys that I'll get your opinion on them. Gardner Minshew. What do you think about him going to the Colts and his possibility of him starting games this year.
I think he's got a good chance. I mean, he always seems to wiggle his way in, whether it's injury or he was the starter there for a year or two in Jacksonville and stuff like that. But yeah, probably a couple of years, good backup years in Philadelphia. So Colts, we don't know. We don't know who they're going to draft or anything like that. So
Yeah,
we'll have to see. But he definitely, of course, everybody likes the way he plays and stuff like that. And yeah, if he was my backup quarterback on the team that I root for, I think I'd be pretty happy about that.
Yeah, for sure. And
Hey, just to bounce back to Desmond Ridder real quick, Mike. I just looked up his stuff because I was like, he'd started a few games at the end. Yeah, nothing really to write home about, but not terrible either, given he didn't even have Kyle Pitts, so it was basically Drake London and nobody else. And that last game, at least, he was 19 completions for 224 and 2 touchdowns, but that was the only game where he had passing touchdowns. So
yeah,
I just thought it will be interesting to watch where those guys end up, what they end up doing, if they are all in on him or Heineke is the guy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think the Minshew one's a interesting one just because it seems like the Colts are not going to get one of the top two guys. If I had to guess, I think Stroud and Bryce Young are probably gone by the time the Colts are picking. And those are the two of you can kind of see them starting from day one. Levis and Richardson, it's kind of maybe give them a little bit of time to develop. And so Minshew could just have the job, not so much not a huge competition, he could have the job, and it's intriguing for sure. But other than that, I mean, Sam Darnold, in terms of a dynasty outlook, I think he's probably one of the few QB3s that should be rostered. San Francisco, I forget if it was during when he was drafted or if it was when he was leaving the Jets, they were interested in him. They wanted to get him on their team, and we know what San Francisco could do. So that's just a little bit of a dynasty point there. But yeah, we'll kind of roll into running backs, a little more interesting, I think, than the quarterbacks. Let's start with David Montgomery. How do you feel about him now, fantasy wise? He's been a good running back 2, I think, and he has stretches of being a running back 1. Just feels like he has a lot of potential coming into the league, and maybe he's disappointed, not on the best team in Chicago now. He's on the Lions. Dad,
I don't even know if
sorry?
Are you there, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah, you froze for a while. So
okay. Well, where did I leave off?
You basically started to say a name. It sounded like you were going to, anyways. Like you said, let's start with, and then you froze.
For running backs?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking about Montgomery and just basically saying I think that's one of the more interesting going to Detroit. Montgomery's been a solid running back 2 for his fantasy career and has stretches of being a running back 1, but maybe disappoints a little bit from what people are expecting. So, Dad, as our resident Lions fan, what do you think about Montgomery from a fantasy perspective? Is he higher up on your list now that he's with the Lions?
Oh, definitely. He, just based upon the Lions' offensive line, there was 3 guys who went to the Pro Bowl. I know the Pro Bowl's a little irrelevant now, but they do have studs along their offensive line. David Montgomery, you look at his 4-year numbers in Chicago, 800 yards, and I think 1 year he had 1,000 yards, and everybody kind of bags on his yards per his average, yards per carry, which is not great. It's right around 4 or a little less, but I guess he's got a pretty good miss rate, and tackles, avoiding tackles, and of course Chicago didn't have never had a lights out offense or something in the last 4 years. So the guy's put some numbers up, and he can catch the ball a little better than the previous guy, Jamal Williams, even though Jamal Williams wasn't terrible. So this is a definite upgrade. Boy, where does he fit in the fantasy world? He, now you got to replace 17 touchdowns. Detroit does.
Yeah.
So I'd
I
say
mean, he's definitely not going to
Montgomery.
get that. But
No, he's not going to get 17 touchdowns, but could he get 8 to 10 touchdowns with 800 to 1,000 yards rushing? Yeah, I think he could. Where does that fit in the pecking order? Yeah, I mean, he's probably about a 1A or an RB1A, I'll call it, or a RB2 in my words.
yeah, Ryan, do you agree with that? Do you have any idea? I know it's always hard with rounds and stuff like that, but where would you put Montgomery in the top 15 now of running backs?
I think he's kind of solid, like kind of in the middle of there. Definitely has potential, but I don't know. It's all going to come down to like how they utilize Swift. Like it seemed like they wanted to get him going last year, and then obviously the injury, and then it was kind of like it seemed like that was kind of nagging, and so I wonder how much they really think they're going to be able to use him. So are they going to? I mean, they obviously wanted Montgomery. They paid him decently for a running back.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I was actually just looking at Goff's stats last year. It's like, all right, so he threw for 29 touchdowns and Jamal Williams had 17. Is that what you said, Dad?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm sure Swift had maybe just a couple, but
he had like 8.
Oh. Yeah,
Yeah.
So
they scored a lot of points. The Lions.
That's pretty impressive. I guess I didn't realize how high it was, like comparatively.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know where I would take him, honestly. Like I know we've kind of talked about this before when it comes to wide receivers, especially, but we've talked about it with running backs too. It's like maybe if people are valuing Montgomery a round or two higher than Swift, maybe you just wait a round or two and then get Swift and see how that pans out, I guess, like draft wise. Like if you can get, like if Montgomery's going in the 4th and you can get Swift in the 6th, I think I'd rather just take Swift in the 6th, honestly.
Okay. So what if I throw out Montgomery or Damian Pierce? Who would you take?
I'd probably go Montgomery. Well, I don't know. Did Pierce even catch the ball? I didn't pay attention to him at all last year. Does he catch at all?
Yeah, I mean he can catch. I don't know how many he caught off the top of my head, but
and he's the Texans guy, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll pull up his stats again real quick. I know
he had 30. He had 30 catches. So
I was gonna say he started off really good, didn't he? And then he kind of fell off. But
yeah,
I don't know. I
mean, gut reaction.
Yeah,
Montgomery.
Yeah,
I think the whole team kind of fell off.
Yeah.
Dad, Montgomery or Damian Pierce?
Oh, definitely Montgomery.
Montgomery or James Conner?
Montgomery.
I think I would take Connor.
Montgomery or the guy his running mate last year, Khalil Herbert?
Montgomery.
Yeah, I'd go Montgomery too. I don't think that they're going in to the season with Khalil Herbert as the number 1 and Travis Homer as the number 2.
Well,
someone else is
they brought in Deontay Foreman. So
also, but they did get Homer also, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. I'd be surprised if they're done there with those 3 guys, but maybe they are. And then if that case, I might take Herbert there then.
Yeah.
If nothing else changes for them.
Yeah, there's 13 running backs that are supposed to be drafted. So
probably more than that, but
yes, 13 running backs is a number that I've heard that guys that have good outlook.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
obviously there's still a few big names on the market too. There's Fournette and I just had another one and I can't think of who it was.
Zeke, Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, Zeke. Yeah, I think it was Hunt. No, it wasn't. I don't know. If I think of it, I'll
But
shout it out.
let's move on. So probably the next biggest one, Miles Sanders to Carolina. Um, Miles Sanders is always an interesting one. I feel like he's a little. I don't know what it is. People are like, they just don't get excited about Miles Sanders, I guess. But he is on Carolina now. Brian, does that make things? Do you feel better about Sanders now, or do you feel worse about Sanders, who almost had 1,300 yards rushing, had 11 rushing touchdowns, 20 catches, not so much, but
Yeah,
yeah. What do you
I
feel about
think
him?
honestly, I think I'd take Miles Sanders over Montgomery. I think they're going to be drafted in a very similar area.
Yeah.
Like I'm guessing around like the round 4-ish, but I mean I'm probably not interested in either one of them in round 4, honestly. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of bad when it comes to rounds. So, but
Um,
yeah.
this is best ball ADP, and I don't know how much it takes into account Montgomery to the Lions now, but Sanders was picked almost 79. So what is that, round 7?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then in the 12 team, and then Montgomery was picked 117.
Wow.
So this is probably
Yeah,
not
that's
having a lot of information before the Lions, but
right. Yeah, I got to imagine. I'd be surprised if those guys lasted like into round 6 or and beyond. Honestly, like, well, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see where the ADP is, but
yeah,
I imagine those guys like there's going to be a lot of like excitement about them.
yeah, yeah.
I just think the Lions offense there for a while was putting up 30 points a game. I know they didn't do that every week, but so
Yeah.
I would definitely take that into consideration.
Weren't they top 5? Weren't they top 5 in scoring?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know in the first half of the season they were scoring pretty good amount of points, but they weren't winning games. But
they were number 1 there for a while.
Yeah.
Until they got like shut out by the Patriots, but I'd imagine they were close to top 5.
Yeah, I've got them here at 5. And they were only 2 points behind the Bills, and then so 1 through 3 was Chiefs, Eagles, Cowboys, and then Bills, and then Lions at 5. So good company.
I would consider that. I don't think they're going to take a step back, but
well, what do you think about Sanders and Carolina? What's your feeling about him? And do you like him more on being on Carolina or less?
Probably a pretty good compared to Montgomery. I'm still sticking with Montgomery. I'm showing my homer route roots, and Miles Sanders. I know he had a big year with Philadelphia, like you said. I mean, you kind of nailed it perfectly. People don't seem to get overly excited, about Miles Sanders. He did put up 1,200 yards last year. Is he going to do that this year? I doubt it, but he still probably should be pretty good. I don't know much about Carolina's offensive line or anything like that, so there's some things to be.
Yeah, you're gonna have a rookie quarterback, so we don't know. That offense might not be very good this year. You're leaving one of the top 5 offenses and maybe the best offensive line in the NFL with the Eagles. So, but
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
We'll see what the rest of the team looks like too, because I mean they got rid of their the best running back in football last year, and they got rid of DJ Moore, their number 1 wide receiver, just like last week or whatever, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. So it's kind of like,
Yeah,
I mean,
what
is that team going to look like? Like,
yeah, but the head coach, I believe, did coach him and was part of Eagles staff when he was there. Coaching Miles Sanders, Frank Wright, who's the coach in Carolina now, and he is the highest paid so far, highest paid running back, for free agent this year. 4 years, 25 million. So it said something, I think. But anyways, two more guys I think I want to touch upon. Jamal Williams to the Saints and Samaje Perine to Denver. Instant reaction, Dad, to Jamal Williams to the Saints, assuming, let's say, Kamara is suspended 4 games. How do you feel about Jamal Williams with Kamara being suspended, and then when Kamara comes back?
Yeah, I think Jamal Williams will kind of fit in pretty good. And right where he left off with the Lions, you don't expect huge numbers, but he's going to be playing. He's going to be productive, he can put the ball in the end zone. So, where does he fit? Like in a fantasy draft? Well, he's after guys like Montgomery and Sanders and stuff like that. So, but good fit to the Saints. And, he did a couple good years in Detroit. So,
yeah. I mean, a good fill in for when Kamara's not there. It feels like he's still going to go pretty late in drafts, like double digit round.
Yeah.
So he could still be good value, but what do you think, Brian? What I don't know. Would you think about drafting him before round 10? Or
No, I wouldn't. Well, I mean, again, like it's still so early. We have to see what the rest is going to, like what's going to happen with Kamara as far as is he going to be suspended or whatever. I know they don't play the same kind of role, but it's like I just feel like the Saints are going to draft somebody that's going to come in and actually take over quite a bit of work. It just kind of feels that way in my gut, but no, yeah, I think definitely double digit rounds. And it's funny. Yeah. Like kind of what you guys are saying. It's like, he's never really been like extremely bad when he plays, but I don't know, that kind of like transitions into the way I feel about Perine, unless there's something else you guys want to say about Jamal Williams.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes people not so excited about Jamal Williams is like he hit 17 touchdowns last year, which is the crazy number. And even if you cut that in half and say he has 9, which is still really, really good, his season just doesn't look that good. 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, basically no catches, 12 catches. So I think that's why you can't expect him to even have double-digit touchdowns. That's kind of a bold prediction, I would say. But yeah, we can get into Perine. You were saying you're not feeling that great about Perine, or?
Well, I'm just kind of curious to like see what do the Broncos do? I mean, on their roster currently, they have Javonte Williams, which who knows when he's coming back. We've heard he'll be ready for camp, and we've heard he might not play all season. Like we've heard both extremes, I feel like, or at least coming back late in the season. So it's like Perine, like I kind of when I haven't seen a player play that much, like when he's always like in like a backup role, even though he's good, like when he's filled in for Mixon in the past, I just feel like there's something that the NFL knows or that team knows that I don't know, where it's like, because I'm looking at it from a fantasy perspective and I'm like, hey, what's wrong with this guy? Like, what's wrong with Alexander Madison? Like every time he steps in for Dalvin Cook, like he's good. Like what's wrong with these guys? So I just kind of default to the NFL when it comes to those kind of guys. So Perine, I feel like there might be something that he doesn't do correctly in order for like the teams to not want to put him on the field more. That's kind of like my opinion on him.
Yeah. I like if you told me right now Jamal Williams or Perine, I'm taking Perine every day, because I think the biggest thing, it's not necessarily about Perine, it's that he went to the Broncos under Sean Payton, and like the crazy production that their running backs have it's like top 2 every year under Sean Payton for like his last like 5, 6, 7 years. Now, was that because of Kamara? Was that because of Sean Payton? We don't know, but I lean towards he's gonna look for someone to be the Kamara in that role, and maybe that's P Ryan. P Ryan had almost 40 catches last year, over 50 targets. He can catch the ball. He's a bigger guy. He's averaged last 3 years 4.8 yards a carry, 4.5, 4.1 last year. Obviously on very limited, less than 100 carries each year, but has looked good. So I just think he's going to want to find someone to fit that Kamara role. I don't think Javonte is going to be back at the beginning of the year, and I think it's going to take him a while to get going. We're looking at maybe six games of like no to limited Javonte, I'd say at the best. In the beginning, and Chase Edmonds is gone. I assume they'll bring someone else in, but as of now, I really actually like P Ryan as like kind of a sleeper late round guy. Dad, what do you think about Samaje P Ryan to the Broncos?
Yeah, I think he'll fit in. He's not going to be anything more than he does seem to produce when he's in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So is he that bell cow, that buzzword, bell cow running back? No, I don't think so, but he's gonna, I was kind of like, you said he caught 40 passes. I was like, wow, didn't know he caught that much. I know every time he's got the ball in a running situation, he's definitely moving forward. Same thing with Jamal Williams. That guy's, they're always going forward. They don't seem to get negative plays and stuff like that. But P-Ron, yeah, I think where does he fit in a draft? He's after round 10, so
yeah,
he's down the road a little bit.
I think so, but I also think he could, like, if you play the hero RB strategy of taking a guy early and then waiting till rounds 8, 9, 10 to take your second guy, I think he's kind of like a perfect target for that as of now, because I think he could have really, really good production. But yeah, other than that, with running backs, I mean, there's other signings, but nothing too crazy. So I think we'll kind of move on unless there's anything else you guys want to say about the guys we talked about or any other running backs. We'll move on to receivers.
Sure.
All right, receivers not as interesting. I guess the two biggest ones are Lazard and Jacoby Myers. We'll start with Jacoby Myers because I think he was kind of the first signing going to the Raiders. I instantly was like, man, that sucks. I wanted to see him be maybe like the third target on a pass heavy team, and going to the Raiders at that time, it was like, okay, maybe he's the third, probably the fourth. But then they trade Waller, like we mentioned, so that helps. What do you guys think of Jacoby Myers? Do you think he's going to take a step up? Do you think he's better situation than being on New England? He's on the Raiders. Again, there's that McDaniels connection as well, so something to keep in mind. What do you think, Dad, about Jacoby Myers?
Yeah. Do I think he's going to have much of a difference production-wise than he had with New England? Yeah, I don't think so. Wasn't it just 2 years ago we were talking about, oh, this guy's never had a touchdown and all that stuff?
2020.
Yeah. So finally, he had a pretty productive year last year. It seems like I don't expect anything more, than what he got in his last year in New England. I think 60, 70 catches with half a dozen touchdowns.
67 catches, 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. Yeah,
it depends on what the Raiders still think of Hunter Renfrow, Mm-hmm. So you got some big mouths to feed, Renfrow, Adams, but they got rid of Waller, so but I don't expect anything more than what he had last year.
Yeah. Brian.
Yeah, I kind of thought something similar about like the Hunter Renfrow thing. But I did hear somebody say I won't say names because I might be getting it wrong, but it was someone who knows a lot more about football than I. They said that the way, or maybe and you guys could maybe speak to this, or maybe you haven't looked into it or whatever, but that Jacoby Myers and Renfro, they play very differently, like the type of
Yeah.
routes they run and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't know. So maybe there is plenty of room for both of these guys. And like you mentioned, Mike, Waller being gone, like that helps. But I mean,
Mhm.
obviously they still got Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams in front of them. So at best, he's the third guy on the team. But I mean, we know Jimmy G, he's gonna throw it, a decent amount of times, like short area stuff. So, and I don't
Yeah.
know if that's exactly, I've never really watched Myers play. I kind of just know his like box score type of numbers where it's like, oh, like he got another 10 targets for 7 catches for 60 yards and no touchdowns.
Yeah. He'll I think what you heard is like Jacoby Myers can play on the outside. He can play on the outside. He's not just a slot guy. Renfro is pretty much a slot guy, meaning when there's two wide receivers on the field, you're most likely going to see Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, those two
Okay.
guys, which is usually what you want. You want it's obviously there's more opportunities to catch passes, right? When there's only two receivers on the field. And then when they bring three in, Renfro will play in the slot. So I kind of agree with you guys. I don't see much. Like I look at his 2021 season, he had 83 catches, 866 yards. If he could do that and then get the touchdowns he had last year, 6 to 8 touchdowns, which is maybe asking a lot, but I think that's what he'll kind of need: 80 catches, 850 yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns to kind of be, a potential flex starter in best PPR leagues for sure. So
Yeah, kind of to points that you've made, Mike, even like in one of the conversations we were having last night, it's like, I feel like you're almost better off just like throwing a guy like I mean, where are you drafting Jacoby Myers? Like it's definitely like for me, it's like I wouldn't want him before round 10, honestly. And maybe that's
yeah,
way too late. I don't know. But like at that point, it's like, why wouldn't you just take like a highly touted rookie or something like that? Like take another piece.
potential.
Yeah, exactly. Like someone who has some kind of potential as opposed to like the guy who's definitely going to get you, 8 to 10, 12 points. 15
Yeah,
he gets a touchdown.
yeah. Like his ceiling unless Adams is out and it's only Jacoby Myers. But um, I was hoping to. I don't know exactly where. I was hoping he went to somewhere else, a little more pass heavy and a little more clear to being like that number 2 target, or like a 2B. But
So do you think if they didn't have Josh Jacobs, you'd feel better about him as the number 2?
I think he could be the number 2, but I just don't know how much the Raiders are going to be throwing the ball. I
Yeah,
guess I don't know, and he's a number 2, but he's not like a Keenan Allen, Mike Williams number 2. He's Devontae
right.
Adams is like 1 and 2, and then there's like Meyer. You know what I mean? Like Devontae Adams is like he's going to dominate, and he's significantly better than Jacoby Myers. So
Is
um,
he like the hottest waiver wire pickup if Devontae Adams goes down for any reason? Knock on wood.
probably, yeah, probably. I mean,
I mean, he'll probably be on someone's team, but
yeah, I assume he will be, but I don't know.
so
It's just it's not I like it more that Waller's not there for sure.
I know you didn't mention him, but what about his replacement? Basically, like I know there was kind of some chatter about that, like Juju getting signed by the Patriots, and they basically gave him the exact same contract. I think Jacoby had got more guaranteed money,
Yeah.
but it was like a very similar contract. And I think like he even had like a tweet where he was like, "Oh man, like this is kind of messed up. Like I would have stayed there," kind of thing. Like
We got
if
3 for 25. Jacoby got 3 for 33. So we're talking about 8 million almost
oh
difference.
wow, I thought it was a lot closer than
Um,
that.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like, what was Juju last year on the best offense with the best quarterback in the NFL? And so, like, I'm not too excited about Juju on a run heavy team, in my opinion. So, I'd rather have Myers than Juju for sure. Dad, any comments on Juju? He was one of the guys that got signed.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I even look back to his Pittsburgh years, and it must have been his rookie year. Everybody was kind of really high on Juju, and then they just he's kind of turned into kind of a middle of the road guy. He's I don't know. He doesn't. If he's my wide receiver 3, yeah, I think I'd be all right with that. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at Juju's stats. So he had just over 900 yards and 7 touchdowns in his rookie season, and then that next one is where he had 166 targets, 111 catches, 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns. So that was like where everyone's like, "Oh, like we don't need Antonio Brown or whatever. Like we got
right.
Juju." And then then nothing since then. I mean, last year was like his basically, well, I don't know. It depends on how you weigh the touchdowns, but he still had 78 catches for 933 yards,
Yeah.
touchdowns last year on KC. So
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Is like he was on Kansas City and he had 78, like you said, 78 catches, 900 yards, 3 touchdowns. Do we see him doing better than that in New England? Like it's not like he was buried behind
No.
3 guys in Kansas City. Like he was the second target in Kansas City, and
I think
I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think at best, kind of like what Dad said about Jacoby Myers. It's like I think Juju can have a Jacoby Myers season. Like maybe I think he could basically do 900 yards and 6 touchdowns. Like you can kind of pencil him in for that, and then
But better than
maybe
Kansas City production.
well about the same, but maybe more touchdowns. Like just because we know who gets the touchdowns on Kansas City.
Yeah.
Well, we know who used to get the touchdowns.
No, Kelsey.
Didn't you hear?
It was kind of spread out last year. I know Kelsey had like a 4 touchdown game. He actually didn't have like a crazy amount of touchdowns. If I remember correctly, I could be completely wrong there, but McKinnon having 10 receiving, and
Yeah,
Kelsey had 12, so that's really, really good. But yeah, he did have a 4 touchdown game.
it was 4 or 5. It was something ridiculous.
Yeah,
It was early in the year too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm taking Myers over Juju just because, again, the potential. I think the potential is way higher for Myers than Juju. I'd be surprised if he repeated his catches and yards that he had with Kansas City last year. Maybe touchdowns more. You can never really bank on that. But yeah, so I guess the last guy, looking at Kelsey, he had 7 touchdowns in 2 games. So, but anyways, I think the last guy to wrap up receivers is Allen Lazard to the Jets, most likely with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. Where would you guys take Allen Lazard in the draft? He's a guy that's kind of hard to predict. I'll tell you in best ball, again, I don't think this is taken into account that he's on the Jets, but he was going 136 in ADP. So 11th, around 11, 12. Would you guys take him before that, Dad? I mean,
no, there's 2 wide receivers ahead of him, Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I hope they trade more.
Yeah, well then we're talking something different. So
yeah,
I don't think Lazard, he wasn't even though he had an okay year in Green Bay. I mean, he's an okay wide receiver. So
yeah.
He's I know he got 44 million for 4 years.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's like, wow, man, it's
better be buying Rodgers a
yeah,
Christmas present.
Yeah, must be nice to be a friend of Rodgers, but
I don't know
I got-
how much this stuff is like actually like in stone. I'm sure it's not, but they do have Alan Lazard as the wide receiver too over Elijah Moore.
yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
don't know how much that really means. That's just on sleeper, just FYI.
yeah, we just have to wait and see how training camp and preseason and all that other stuff. And so,
Yeah. To me, he's going to need 8+ touchdowns to be even start worthy in fantasy. And that's possible because Rodgers is going to trust him, and Rodgers generally has his guys that he likes and trusts and always takes times with rookies. So he's going to a new team. But
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson is the alpha.
I don't know. I disagree with it. Like, as far as like, I mean, we've seen Alan Lazard with Aaron Rodgers, and like we haven't seen anything. Like,
Yeah, I mean, we did have an 8 touchdown year. I think that's what people were excited about.
yeah, but yeah, like you said, touchdowns are unpredictable. I mean, he was basically, I don't know if you want to call him the number one guy on the team last year. I haven't looked at like the how it all like shook out between him and the rookies and stuff. But I mean, 100 targets, 60 catches, not just under 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's what he got last year. It's like
he didn't look like the number one on Green Bay. So
right, and he's not going to be the
like
number one on the Jets. Like he's not going to take Garrett Wilson's job. So it's like, well, how
absolutely not.
he's going to be one of those guys. Yeah, best ball way better than actual fantasy. Like I don't see what's the point in taking him. I guess like
Yeah, I mean, again, if he can fall into a Robert Tonyan 2020 type of season where he catches 12 touchdowns, I think there's a possibility.
That's funny.
But, that's about it.
That's your stand-up comedy for the day.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's possible. Actually,
Well, it's always possible. Yeah.
The stand-up comedy is going into the tight ends, and we got to talk about freaking Hayden Hurst as the highest paid tight end this offseason, just beating out Josh Oliver. You don't even know who that is. I don't even know who that is.
You're right. That means I don't care.
Well, actually, there's a couple guys. We can talk about Waller real quick. Not free agent, but traded. I personally like it more where he's at now on the Giants versus the Raiders. Like as of now, I think he's the number one target. And you always want your tight end to be either the first or second most targeted player. That's where you get those stud tight ends. And I think he has a really good chance to be that. I really like Waller.
Yeah, I can definitely see Daniel Jones. There was a rookie tight end who was starting to come on at the end of the year, Bellinger.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see Daniel Jones, being pals with Waller on the field, and the Giants haven't really, everybody says they need wide receivers. Well, they haven't really done anything except for re-signed Sterling Shepard and I think one of their other guys. So
they got rid of Galladay.
Yeah, Harris Campbell.
Well, yeah, that's an addition by subtraction by far.
for Galladay, yeah, they did bring in Campbell.
Yeah. So even if they draft somebody, that doesn't mean Waller is going to be the topic of discussion is Waller going to be good with the Giants, and I'd say he should do pretty well.
Who have they had? Because they had Ingram before they traded him. Is that right?
Yep.
Or cut him? So I mean, and was he good? Like, does Daniel Jones have a history with tight ends at all?
Not really.
I'm genuinely asking because I don't know.
I mean, Daniel Jones hasn't really had a history of being a good passing quarterback.
Yeah.
In general. So no, not really.
Seemed like he was hurt quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it was either him or Jones. I mean, they were both kind of, what do you want to call it, struggling, or the offense sucked or something. And so now they got the coach they got the coach. Everybody's got good contracts. They should be happy, and there should be some big production there.
Hopefully, I might even break my rule of avoiding older guys coming off back-to-back underwhelming seasons, which is what Waller has been. But might break that rule now. I mean, I was kind of out on Waller. Now I'm back in on him because we'll see what they do in the draft. Hopefully they draft someone as well. Kind of take the pressure off of them.
Yeah, I don't think he's a top 5 fantasy tight end, but he's somewhere 6 through 10. The next 5. So
we'll top 5: Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, Hawkinson, Kittle. Is that your top 5 or?
Yeah, that's pretty much
Goddard or Waller.
Hayden Hurst, Goddard or Waller. Goddard.
I'm gonna go Waller.
Yeah, I'd go Waller too. Well, I don't know. Are you talking about if they're drafting in the same exact spot, or because I got to imagine Waller goes after Goddard, but I kind of wonder where he's gonna go.
Again, let's just say so Goddard was going 62nd overall. Let's say they're both going in the 5th, late 5th. Waller versus Goddard. Who are you taking?
Receiver.
Fair enough. But let's say you're forced to take a tight end.
Yeah, I think I'd take Waller. Like I think.
Yeah, didn't you screw yourself on a tight end last year?
Who, me?
You.
I mean, everyone did if you didn't have Kelsey.
I know. I took Mark Andrews. What are you talking about? So yeah, I did.
Oh, in your dynasty, you all year you kept on saying, "Oh, geez, I don't have a tight end."
Oh
and
yeah.
Now,
I mean, no one. Yeah, like Mike said, no one has a tight end like in fantasy.
Oh, baloney.
I mean, it's kind of true. If you don't have one of the top 3-4 guys,
it's kind of always been that way, though.
Yeah.
I mean, my in Dynasty, my tight ends were now. Here's the laugh track. It was Robert Tonyan, Logan Thomas, Irv Smith, and there was one other guy I had. Oh, it was Komet also.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Komet. He was supposed to be the man in Chicago.
Yeah, and I couldn't stand to watch him, so I actually cut him before he actually did anything.
Yeah.
Just because I mean, like Chicago was throwing it like 12 times a game or something. I was like, I can't watch this. It's like he has a 40% target share with.
Come on, they were throwing it at least 20 times a game.
We're gonna stop talking about the Bears, how much they sucked last year.
Wait, no, go
ahead. I think I'm not gonna talk about Hayden Hurst. I'm sorry. I'm just not.
Wait.
I think that.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry. I actually did end up getting it up. Here's Justin Fields' pass attempts, Dad.
Yeah, we know.
17, 11, 17, 22, 21. And then he finally started throwing. And then he has a couple more games with 20, 21, 21.
Yep. But he rushed for 1,000 yards. So.
Yeah. And they got the first pick. So fantasy versus reality, right?
Yeah. Now they're 9.
So the only other tight end signing I like is, or I think has any significance, is Mike Gesicki to New England. But I'm not even that excited about that.
I didn't even see that happen.
Yeah, it was like last night or this morning or something.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe I'm that doesn't make me that excited. I think I don't know. Do you guys have anything on Gesicki to New England? I mean, Hunter Henry's still
there. Hunter Henry's already there. So what's there to get excited about? It just kind of diminishes.
Juju, I think, more than anything.
Well, yeah. Well, it diminishes both of those guys, both the tight ends.
Yeah.
What any type of value that they got. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not jumping out of bed on that one. So
neither am I. Ryan, anything on Gesicki?
I don't know, round 15.
Yeah, maybe.
Tight end premium only. I don't know. Like,
You better get Irv Smith.
yeah,
Sure. There's a couple. I mean,
you better
Dalton
pick
Schultz
up
is
Hawkinson and complain about it half the year.
Dalton Schultz is the big one, I think, waiting on that signing. But yeah, I think we'll finish up there. I think we touched on the big guys, and we'll see what happens. We still got guys out there to be signed, so see what happens, and we'll be back next week talking about the news and something exciting, I hope. But if you guys anything else to say, if not, we're gonna finish it up. All good?
No, that's
All
it.
good.
All good. We'll see you guys next week.